So, The Crimes of Grindelwald is the second Fantastic Beasts film. And I mentioned how, like, with the first, the first film, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, that I kind of like the new world they establish here, but I feel like that it kind of got lost a little bit here, where I couldn't quite enjoy so much of the like kind of like the magical world and the whimsy and all that, because I think it was a little bit muddled with its characters and plot lines. So I had some hope. I did have some hope that, okay, well, maybe in the sequel, they can iron it out. They can have a better character dynamic. Maybe they can flesh some more stuff out. Maybe they can flesh more out here. I think I said in one review, I hope I don't have to rely on, what were they drinking? Like the giggle juice? I hope I don't have to rely on that to enjoy the Fantastic Beasts films. I'm going to have to rely on like a manual just to, for the Crimes of Grindelwald, I'm going to need a manual just to figure out this film, let alone be entertained by it. There are so many characters and plot lines and backstories and betrayals and other backstories and politics and magical spells and even more backstories that are all intermingled into this really tangled tapestry of a film that is just muddy and clunky and messy, and it's just it goes all over the place here. And at the same time, it feels like it's just doing more of the same as well. Essentially we have Newt Scamander, who's back once again, and he's asked by the British Ministry of Magic, hey, Grindelwald, that guy you met back in New York? Well, he's escaped. He made his great escape while we were transporting him out of the prison. And we need you to go, and we need you to come find him. And of course, Newt is like, nope, that's not my deal. That's not my deal. I'm not interested in Grindelwald. I'm more interested in Tina Goldstein, one of the one of the people working with the American Ministry of Magic. He kind of like, hey, maybe I can find her. Maybe I can finally confess my true love. And also, I'm a little bit busy with, my little menagerie of magical creatures, which we do get back into. We do see we do see a few more familiar faces, some of the other creatures, some new creatures here and there, including, what was it that, forgive me, I'm terrible with the names, but that little, like, kind of platypus-looking thing that, like, steals gold. You get a lot more of them. Apparently that thing had babies. So it has babies in this movie, too. So there you go. So he's more interested in that. And he's also, and Jacob, who you might remember from Fantastic Beasts, is back here as well. You might remember he was the muggle who kind of fell in love with an enchantress called Queenie, played by Alison Sudol, and Dan Fogler plays Jacob. And they're kind of back together because apparently the spell didn't quite work. And believe me, you're going to have to get used to this, where like a lot of characters do have to return from Fantastic Beasts. Like you'd think like Jacob's story and Queenie's story would be done. No, but they weave them back in here. You would think that, Credence, who had the, what's it called? The parasite, the Obscurus. You might remember, like, he kind of bit the dust in the last film, but a piece of him remains. So yeah, he's back again, once played by Ezra Miller. So yeah, there are all these returning elements, and they can't really, it seems like they can't find much to do with them, because the extent of Jacob in this story is that Queenie kind of put a charm on him and convinced him, like, oh, we should get married. Except then the charm gets off him, and you think, like, Jacob would be appalled, like I don't know if I can trust you. You tried to enchant me so that we could get married. That's not right. But no, somehow it ends up being Queenie who's offended, and she ends up going to her mother's. And so essentially, Newt and Jacob's story here is basically them trying to find their women and do right by them. That's essentially the extent of their plot. Meanwhile, there's all this crazy crap going on with Grindelwald, who wants to stir up, wizards against the world of the humans, the Muggles, saying like, the Muggles, they're gonna bring war and all this, and we've got to overtake their world. And he basically wants to hold up wizards as the superior race. And to do that, he knows that he needs Credence, and so most of the film is just him concocting this very layered plan to get Credence to trust him. And it's way too much, because yeah, that's pretty much the extent of what Grindelwald is doing here. It's mostly just him staging all these deaths and deception and murder and just trying to convince Credence to come with him. And you can really tell like this is a bridge movie because of like how much is piled on here, and it just kind of casually goes with it. Like you won't get to see much of Grindelwald teaming up with Credence, because this is kind of like the charming bridge film to get between that, because apparently there's like gonna be 5 films in this saga. And it's like, man, if this is the second film, man, we're in for a really, really long and tedious film series here. Because in addition to finding Credence, you also have all these other characters they have to balance, like Newt's brother, who's working in the ministry. He's saying like, you should come work for us. You got to pick a side. It's like, no, I don't really want to choose a side. This ain't my thing. But yeah, but you're gonna end up running into Grindelwald eventually, you know, like you did in the last film. So you should probably come with us. But then they weave all these other characters in here. That's like, I don't understand why you're bringing in this in here. I mean, I kind of get it, because you want to provide you want to have more twists to this story, to the origins of Credence and Grindelwald. So you're gonna bring in all these other characters, like Letta Lestrange, played by Zoe Kravitz. She kind of has a sordid history that relates to Credence. You have Nagini, who is played by Claudia Kim, who's apparently half kind of a woman and a snake at the same time, which kind of confuses the whole Harry Potter role thing. She has involvement with Credence as well. And then you have Jude Law as Dumbledore, which you think, oh, that would be a lot of fun. You know, Jude Law playing Dumbledore. He's barely in the picture, mostly because the Ministry of Magic doesn't want to work with him. So like, hey, Dumbledore, you help us? He's like, yeah, maybe I will, maybe I won't. It's like, okay, fine, then you're out. You're out. You'll get a few scenes and that'll be it. And so the story just, it complicates itself with so much of these sordid affairs that it's really hard to get into this film. It's tough enough just to connect how all of these characters relate, which the film spends a lot of time doing. And it's been so much time doing this that you don't really get a lot of that character dynamic. Like the extent of the romantic chemistry between Catherine Waterston playing Tina and Eddie Redmayne playing Newt Scamander is that he's basically got to find the right way to say that her eyes kind of look like salamanders. That's pretty much the extent of their romantic dynamic here. And that wouldn't bother me if it weren't such a big deal that the film focuses on. Like, I was surprised by how blunt a lot of this dialogue is. Just to keep the story moving at all times. And there's very little like character chemistry here. Like, I can't really feel much for Credence, because he's mostly just kind of doing this like, you know, this kind of like frustrated, like, you know, head holding, like, oh, what am I gonna do? I don't know what to do with these powers. And then you got Johnny Depp playing Grindelwald, who's mostly just doing his Johnny Depp character, who's kind of like that kind of like subtle, don't really show emotion here. And it's not very effective. It feels like the standard Johnny Depp villain order, saying like, okay, look, you want me? Here's our standard pricing. If you want me for this much time, oh well, you know, it's gonna cost you a little bit more. So in this case, I'm just gonna, you know, they're just gonna frost his hair, and he's just gonna put forth, you know, the usual Johnny Depp acting that you expect here. So he's quite a disappointment here, and there's so much else to this film that I think really waters it down, but also I think it becomes like needlessly dark. Now I know that a lot of people say, oh well, you know, it's Harry Potter, it's got to be a little bit dark, but this is a film where you see babies drowning, you see little children being zapped to death, you see families being torn apart and killed, you see people going up in flames. It's just like, what is this supposed to be an adventure? Is this supposed to be fantasy? Because it's getting really dour. Like, and I know usually in bridge films you tend to go darker because you want to raise the stakes here, but it doesn't feel like all the stakes are here yet. It feels like there's way too much of this, you know, sordid history going on that I really can't. It's tough to get into this world of Harry Potter. I feel like I need like a cork board with portraits of all the characters and like pins and string to like connect. Like, okay, this person was connected to this person over here, but they switched places, and then these people made an oath, but then they split up here, and then so they might be connected to this family, or they might possibly be on this family tree. There is literally they show family trees in this, saying like oh, okay, this family tree is a little bit distorted, but you're gonna have to bear with me here. It's too much going on in this film? And I know we kind of expect that from Harry Potter films, you know, that they have to be dense, you know, as most fantasy films are. But it feels so dense here, and it feels like it doesn't really say anything. Like, I never really felt anything for Credence. I never really felt that intimidated by Grindelwald. I never even really felt that much for Newt, who's just kind of going through the same motions again here. Until he eventually realized, like, oh, I should probably pick a side now that, you know, the wizarding world's going to be could be at war with Muggles. Like, maybe I should pick a side here. It takes a whole film for them to do that. And also, like, the other thing I wanted to mention too is how much, you know, like, a lot of people say, oh, well, it's world building. You know, you're building up this world. But the thing is, we've kind of built up most of this world that you really have to raise the stakes visually with what you're seeing here. Like, I recalled how much I really dug Fantastic Beasts, the first film, when we went to the American Ministry of Magic, and you saw you saw like the towering structure, you saw their like little pneumatic tube system, you saw their courts, you saw their interesting methods of torture and like death sentences that they bring you to. It was all pretty cool stuff. Here they go to Paris, France, and it doesn't really feel like there's any flavor or anything all that interesting here that you couldn't find anywhere else in the Harry Potter films. And again, I think that's because the story is way too dense, that it's trying to incorporate all these characters, all these plot lines, and all these dynamics, that it gets lost within itself. And I mean, okay, yeah, sure. There are some, you know, whimsical elements. Yeah, you do get to see a few more creatures here and there. They show a giant cat at one point, and they distract it with a feathery toy. I mean, that's kind of cute. But I was taking note of how, like, a lot of these special effects, they don't seem as up to snuff here. Like, and at one point they're running from giant not the same cats, but there's like giant, like, kind of like Sphinx cat guards, something like that. There's these giant monster cats, and then later they're transformed into regular looking cats, except they look like, when they transform into regular cats, they look like the fakest cats. It looks like a computer generated cat from 1999. It's that bad. So it's like, I think like even the special effects are slipping here. So I mean, it just feels so bland, and it really shouldn't. And again, like I'm saying, you know, it has this tangled tapestry of all these characters and plot lines. And I think that J.K. Rowling, who wrote the script here, I think she makes a big mistake by making this so lore heavy. It's like, you don't want to do that with fans, because I could tell, I could hear all the whispering among all the fans in the crowd saying, like, oh, like, who's that character? Okay, this was this character related to this event. But then there'd be other questions like, wait, when did this happen? Wait, oh, okay, maybe they mentioned this in the book, or maybe they didn't. And these are people who are big fans, so naturally they're scrutinizing this thing like, well, that's not how it happened in the book. That doesn't match up with the chronology and the continuity and the timeline. And you know, and you know me, you know, I'm one of those people who say, like, you know what, fine, continuity be damned. Just make an entertaining story, and just make sure that there's some chemistry. Make sure that I care about this world and the characters. And it doesn't. I really didn't really feel much of anything for these characters who are just kind of going through the motions, including like Newt and Jacob, who almost kind of have like this kind of like honeymooners type plot line where they got to go find the women in their lives and apologize to them. It's like, it doesn't work. Like, the magic's gone here. I mean, I'm sorry I said that, but it's true. I wasn't feeling the fun nature that I usually felt from a lot of these Harry Potter films, including the Fantastic Beasts. So I'm sorry, but the film's a mess. It's, especially with the editing. The editing here is so bad. It edits so quickly between different scenes, and there's like a lot of blank space left in between there that doesn't really explain how a character got to here. There's one baffling twist where a character makes a huge turn, like a character switches sides, and it feels like it comes out of left field. Like, there's no build up to it, and you're like, wait, why is this character doing this? What is their motivation here? Where did this argument come? I don't know. There's way too many questions I had while watching this film. And you know, it's a fantasy film. Fantasy films shouldn't feel like homework. You shouldn't feel like you're coming into like an English class where you didn't read all the material and you're struggling to make it through the class while the teacher is kind of having like these lapses in memory. That's what this feels like. it's a very, very frustrating fantasy, and I was so bored by it the whole time. I mean, I was willing to go along with it if there was some character dynamic here, if I dug where the story was going, if I dug the world, but I couldn't. It's too focused on its lore, and it's kind of like meandering plot lines that sometimes intersect and sometimes just get tangled up in everything that I didn't care. I'm sorry. So for the Crimes of Grindelwald, 1.5 out of 5.